Kia ora koutou, nau mai haere mai, nau mai haere mai ki ngā manihiri, nau mai haere mai ki ngā kaikanihira, nau mai haere mai ki ngā hoa mahi. Kua tai mai nei mō tēnei hui. Me kara ki a tātou. He honorea, he kororea ki tātua, he maungaronga ki te whenua. He whakaaro pai ki ngā tangata katoa. Aia nei, aki nei. Nō reira, e pā, e tō mātou i te rangi. Whakapainga mātou i tēnei rā, mena kaupapa kei mua i a mātou i tēnei rā. I runga e te ingoa o ihu karaiti. Amen. Welcome everybody. Hey rangi a tāhua. All right. Apologies. All right. Declarations of interest, and just for noting, with declarations of interest, it's important to understand 3.1 of our standing orders. Anyone that holds an interest or expresses strong political or personal views that may indicate prejudice or predetermination for or against the person or issue. I raise this matter because there has been submissions and statements right throughout on various issues. So it is a personal decision of councillors where they stand on this. But if you feel that you can't make an open decision and you are predetermined on any issues in front of us today, you need to declare that as a declaration of interest. Any declaration of interest? No? Okay, confirmation of the minutes. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Burdett, second by Councillor Sheldrake. Any matters arising? Okay, if there's no matters arising, all those in favour? Carried. Against? Governance work plan. That's page 14.
Can I go back and ask a question, please?
Yes, certainly.
I just wanted to know about the MAR. We had a postponed workshop, and I was just interested to know when the MAR workshop were going to go ahead. Who's in charge of that? 23rd of November.
Thanks for that. Nothing on the governance work plan? All right, we do have a leave of absence for Councillor Foster noted. Moved by Councillor Burdett, second by Councillor Seymour. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Right, we have two public petition inputs today. First from Wainui Lions Club, welcome Ken Huberts. And this is to do with a new train track at the Adventure Playground. Ken's a regular visitor over the years with different Wainui Lions matters.
Thank you, Andy. Mayor, councillors.
Just push that on. Yep, that's it. You don't have to.
Red's good. Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to come and speak to you guys today. I'll just give you a little bit of background on myself, what we're asking for, and we'll go from there. I'm a member of the Wainui Lions Club, have been coming out for 25 years. And our club has been around, as you know, for close to 44 years. So it's been a good supporter of our club. Just a little bit about Lions, obviously. For those who don't know, the club that I belong to is an international organisation. And, you know, we do a lot. There's 1.4 million members in over 200 countries. And you can see from our mission and our goal that, you know, our job is to try and just be a leader in the community and humanitarian services. We take on a few challenges, and you'll see there's some big ones, and we do that on a global scale, and we're really proud to be part of that as well. So we really do think that we make a difference in the world, but not only in the world, but also in our own community. So that's what happens when you can combine forces on such a large scale. We are a big, strong supporter of our own community. So it comes in three parts, really. We obviously look after our community. We also help nationally in causes and stuff whenever required. And we also help on an international basis. So as I said, we have pretty good pull power. Locally, of course, we've completed the cycle park a few years back. That was our centennial. Lions is just over 100 years old now, 103 years. So that was our project that we gifted to the city. Just talking with a few people today, I mean, we're down there with our train, hence the discussion today. That's used frequently every day, and it's really enjoyed by the people of Gisborne and our visitors. So it's really enhanced that park, and you know, I think it's a huge asset. I've come to talk to you about our train and some of the things that we'd like to do to continue to enhance the adventure playground. We currently operate a train which we acquired through the Kiwanis when they closed, and so that train, we're guessing, was probably about 40 years old. But it still does the job, you know, and it chugs around there faithfully when we can get it started. For those technically minded, it's an old Datsun 120Y engine with a Subaru automatic gearbox and a whole host of rigs and ralphs. So it's a homemade train, and when it's purring, it purrs really well, but when it gives us issues, it's very good at doing that. It is aging. Its reliability is in question. Its costs to maintain it are increasing, and obviously it's an interesting thing to drive. But it's really popular, you know. For all its faults that we see, the kids just see a train, right? And that's all they want. And it rings, it toots, and it chuffs away, and it goes around the track, and they have a great time. And so from that point of view, we want to continue that on, but we've looked at options of upgrading it, and it's sort of become a little bit hard. But it's really popular, you know. And so just to give you some stats, you know, this is over 21. Some of this is pre-COVID, some post. We didn't operate until level 1, level 2, 3 and 4. We're obviously not there. We run around the park, as you know, so this is an average, but you know, 10, almost 11 times, 7 people a ride. So in any given day, it's 43 children, 23 adults go for the ride. Now, that's reasonably conservative. So it's 65 odd tickets that we sell. Of late, we've almost doubled those numbers. When it's a nice day, it really pumps. And we've been running it normally every Sunday only, but we've been doing Saturdays as well. So again, and every day we run it, it's always popular. So it gives us an income, which is pretty important. Understand how we operate is that, you know, we really like being able to support a whole bunch of ventures, cash or otherwise, but for us to give away, we have to receive. And so this is a fundraiser for us. And so that's how we raise some of our money. We obviously do Christmas trees and sausage sizzles and as much as you like, see with others, but that's one of our incomes. So we believe it's a great asset because it does two things. It raises money for our club, but it also provides a great amenity for our city. Our new train. Okay, so I don't know what you think about that, but that normally goes ooh, ah, right? I don't want to go into too much detail. We've tried to get something built locally, and anybody that has tried that on a one-off has run a country mile. Regulations and stuff are just a killer these days. And so it becomes really hard for people to build something like this without scale. This is built in Canada by a company called Wattman, and that's all they do. They build trains for amusement devices in a variety of colours, shapes and sizes. This one will be fully electric. So obviously taking forward the green type thing as opposed to our current chuffer. Reliability is obviously increased, very low running costs, and it's a lot easier to drive. Power steering, it's a good question. It's apparently easy to drive. So, but anyway, it's a bit hard to see, but there's some stats for you if you want. But it can take up to 24 small children and 18 adults, which is slightly more than our current train, understanding we have 1 wagon currently. But what we're suggesting is 2 carriages and a caboose. The caboose is wheelchair friendly. So the back can be folded down and take a wheelchair. So we thought that was quite a good addition to the train. So it'll have the 3 carriages as you saw previously. As I mentioned before, certification, it comes out of the factory fully certified. So you'll see there that it already has the ticket. which is what we need. And that was the thing that scared most people off about producing it here, is that you could build it and you may not necessarily get a ticket for it. These have already been signed off. I've already spoken to the person that signs it off, our current train off, our amusement device. He comes here for the AMP show to do a lot of their gear, because a lot of their gear is first time use. So he signs off ours as well. And he knows about these trains. There's already 2 in New Zealand, and he's more than happy to look at that again, but he knows that it will come built to do the job. The challenge really is that our current one runs on wheels, and we can go anywhere over the park as we're allowed to, okay, and that's fine. This one here has a little bit more of a restricted wheelbase and smaller tyres, and really requires a track to run on. Doesn't have to be concrete, but just something a little bit more former in the way that it goes. And it has an incline restriction of about 7 degrees. There's one hill there that we climb up. When full, it's a bit of a challenge for our little train to get up over the top, but our electric wouldn't go. So again, we'd need to do some shaping. But at the end of the day, it needs a track. So our good friends at Civil Project Solutions, who have been very supportive of us and have given time to draw a track. It's a bit hard to see that on the screen, but effectively it's where the track currently runs around the lake, and then goes back to the station. It's 750 metres in length. And what we're asking for, here you'll see, and again, I've got this information for you, but it just shows you the terrain, because it's been mapped out. So there's some highs and lows that we need to level out. What we're looking for is a track that sort of is about 2 to 2.2 metres wide, limestone compact, 100 millimetres thick, right? That goes around the track, around where we propose it to go. Again, there's some stats there for you, but at the end of the day, it's designed to do the job. The funding, well, our club has committed $10,000 to the project, and the rest of it will obviously, we'll have to go out cap in hand and try and find it. Now the big question is, of course, is how much is the train going to cost? The cost is estimated about 115,000 New Zealand dollars. The track costs are estimated about 35,000, and there's some infrastructure costs about 8,000. So that's what we need to go out and find. What we've asked for council is to support the project to do the track, help us with consents and associated costs, and then once we gift it to council, when it's all in, look after it. Our contribution will be to raise all the money and costs associated with the train and the track, and we'll look after the ongoing maintenance of the train itself and as needed. I've got a little video which just shows you the train in motion. There is supposed to be sound. No, our current president is here. As you'll see, that train toots and whistles and smokes. So albeit electric, we still have the ability to generate these things. So it still rings and toots and smokes like a real train should do. So it has all those sort of things. I think I've covered everything. A couple of things I'll give some background. Because we wanted to look after the roots of the trees that we currently drive over as we go through, we've been working with Paul Roberts from Roberts Tree Solutions. And he's given us a report on the work that we need to do to try and mitigate any damage to the routes. I mean, we're driving on that now, but basically what we're trying to do is to mitigate any damage. And that might be, as the people that have ridden the train will know that we go through the trees, so we might put some sort of boardwalk in there. So that's trying to get that side of things. So I've also spoken to Recreational Services who maintain the park, and they believe that there will be no additional costs in maintaining the track. They've given us a couple of pointers to say that they need a 2-metre mowing strip wherever we put the track. And so we've aligned the track to make sure that they either have 2 metres or no grass, so they can not have any extra costs to go on. It's compacted lime, so they can run the mower straight over the top. They're not having to be restricted and stuff like that. So those are 2 areas we thought that were really worth looking at. And I've been working with Lead Kennedy and Lindsay to try and make sure that we cover everything. Now, if I haven't covered anything, now's the time to ask me a question, because
Exactly.
I need to answer those for you.
Yeah. And councillors can only ask questions. Yep. Councillor Wilson.
My question was just, what's the life expectancy of
The train itself, I don't have, there's no things on the train. The batteries themselves have a life of around 5 years. So there'll be a cost on doing those batteries, again, depending on usage and things. So the train itself is built in a solid way, and we believe that that's why we're investing in something that can do the hard yards. I don't have that long term, but.
Councillor Seaman.
Thanks very much for the presentation. 2 questions. Are the Lions Clubs a charitable trust, or do they have a charitable trust?
We do have a charitable trust.
Second question, is that still a train that you will be able to take out to the AMP show?
The challenge is transporting it. Our current one has a license to drive on the road, albeit empty. The new one won't, but we're looking at potentially trailering it or trucking it to different locations when as required. The challenge has been, and we steered away from trying to get it on the road, because as soon as you involve the road, there is another rule book, the stick that comes towards it all, and it becomes really hard.
Yes, Dobbs.
Do you need a special license to drive it?
No, you don't need you need to have a driver's license. Okay, a current New Zealand driver's license. Why that is, I don't know. But anyway, but you do need to be trained, obviously, in the operation of the train. But outside of that, no, you just need a normal New Zealand current car driver's license.
Thank you. Sounds really cool. Whereabouts are you at with it, and when would you expect it to be going around the adventure playground?
That's a good question. Once I can get approval at council to put the track in, basically we will then go looking for funds. Okay, so delivery of the train is 6 to 8 weeks from order, but I can't order that obviously until I've secured the funding. So there is some funding to be secured first, but I can't put the cart before the horse. So I need to get approval to do what we're looking at. Then once I've got that, then I can go and seek funding. Once I've got the funding, the train will come there. I'm thinking, you know, optimistically, middle of next year, potentially.
Councillor Sheldon. Okay, if there's nothing, sorry, Councillor Aquati.
Kia ora. I just was interested to know that Tangata Whenua have a relationship with you in respect to that land space, and I just know Tawhiri have done some amazing work with the airport, respectively. So Tangata Whenua, just within this space, they have a relationship with you.
Okay. I'm not sure how, what you would like me to.
Sorry, just in respect to the park itself, I wasn't sure whether, because we've had some input from iwi.
Yes.
So I just wondered if you, as the Lions, have met with iwi at all.
No, we haven't.
Okay.
We're happy to do that if needed.
All right, thanks very much. Ken, I chair the Connects Trust, and we've done on the bikes and schools pathways, which are probably quite similar to this. So it's part of your due diligence. You might want to make contact with us to see if there's. Cool. Thanks a lot. Okay, next presentation, we've got Christine and Jeff from the Gisborne Kindergarten Association. Welcome. And we do speak through this, but you don't have to get right up close to it. It's quite a distance. Yeah. Thank you. Councillors?
Ata Māori tātou, tēnā koe te koro matua, tātou rangatira rehets, kia koutou katoa ngā kai kaunihira, he mihi anō kia Nadine te kai hautu o tēnei waka, me ona kai whakahaere, tātou katoa, morena tātou. He mihi mahana kia koutou, mō tēnei tuku, kia mātou i tēnei wahanga ki te whakapua ki ngā whakaaro, ngā tūmanako ki te poipoi awa tātou tamariki mokopuna o te hapori nei. Ko Chris Tāre tōku ingoa, he uri ahau no te whānau a Rua Taupari, te whānau a Rākai Roa, Ngāti Pūkeko o tira no Ngāti Porou me Ngāti Awa o Kuiwi. Kia ora, I'm Chris, born and raised in Kaiti. He mihi aroha ki wa tātou iwi ko Ngāti Oneone o tira wa tātou hapu ngā iwi o Turanganui a Kiwa o te Tairāwhiti hoki. I am the professional leader of the Gisborne Kindergarten Association, and this morning we want to thank you for the opportunity to share our vision. Our vision is called Te Pā Harakeke, and this literally came to us in a moimoia and a dream that we have to foster and to nurture te reo Māori right across our organisation, but also to support our Pacifica families that are living here in Turanga. So, ko wai mātou, our association have been in Gisborne for over 60 years. Our oldest kindergarten is the Rutini Road Kindergarten. Don't know if some of you have even gone through our kindergartens as children, but we have about 399 tamariki enrolled in 10 kindergartens across our rohe, 8 in Turanga, 1 in Whangara, next door to the kura, and the other one in Wairua. We have over 56.5% Māori tamariki and 5.3% Pacific learners from Samoa, Tonga, Fiji, Tuvalu, and Cook Islands. So we are currently leasing the site for our Rutini Road Kindergarten on 128 Rutini Road. And I'm not sure if you know, but we're on council land, and we've been leasing that land, as I said, over 60 years. So the land next door to our current kindergarten has become available for lease. And our head teacher, Gail, came to see me and said, Chris, what are we going to do? What can we do to support more of our families? And currently their waiting list is over 50 whānau are trying to get into the kindergarten. So we have a huge need to support the whānau that are waiting. So our whāinga or our objectives are to design quality learning environments and to have localised curriculum that affirms the cultural identity, language and local knowledge of our iwi. We want to lift and enhance the growth of te reo Māori me ngā tikanga a iwi o te Tairāwhiti. And of course, we want to support our Pacific relations to help them to retain and maintain their cultural traditions. I grew up knowing our Samoan community, the Sioux family, Auntie Beulah and Uncle John. And actually my sister married their son. And so we've got a very strong relationship with our Samoan community and also our Tongan community. Pauli and his wife Saini are very good friends of ours as well. And we've seen the challenges that they've had to retain their languages coming over from the islands and making Turanga Aotearoa their home. We're really wanting to grow the leadership capacity and capabilities for everyone that we're working with. So the vision is to establish a pāharakeke, which is like a learning community, and it includes 3 new kindergartens or early learning facilities. The first one would be a Punareo, total immersion of 42 tamariki, including 12 pepe. And we would also like to establish a Pacifica Immersion Centre, Early Childhood Centre, similar numbers. And our current kindergarten at Rutini Road, we do need to extend because of the numbers of whānau that are trying to come in. We have a vision for a bilingual kindergarten that would also include 20 infants and toddlers. So it's a big vision. As I said, this is a dream that's come to us. We are still at the early stages of this particular moemoeā. Here we have on the far left, well, you can see our kindergarten at the roof area. That's the existing kindergarten, and our playground is there. 3 years ago, after many years of waiting and having a bit of a battle with the council, we finally got a car park to support our families so they didn't have to cross the road. For years, the parents were lined up on the main road, having to cross the road with their children to get to the kindergarten. So we're hugely grateful that we now have a car park so that our families can be safe in arriving and leaving the kindergarten. You can see the land next door, which was the croquet club, and they too were there for a number of years, and we want to say thank you and honour them for all of their mahi over the years and the history that's there on that whenua. So the whakaaro is that we build the Punareo. I'm sorry, it's not coming up clearly on the screen, but the Punareo is closer to the road alongside the Pacific Early Learning Centre. At the back, we would build a new kindergarten for Rutini with the infant toddler centre. We hope to have a marakai. Our Ngāti Onione, iwi, and our ancestors, Te Maro, all of our whānau have had a rich history of marakai. And we are wanting to honour that history and to ensure that we have a marakai there so that the tamariki can grow the kai themselves alongside their whānau. We want to have a hangi pit and a umu pit as well for all of our celebrations. In the middle of the space, we hope to have a ngahere or a bush area so that the tamariki can just have that space to connect in with Te Taiao. So there's lots of kōrero that we have begun, but we still need to do more. We've been talking with our families. Currently in our kindergartens, we've been talking to early conversations with Ngāti Onione and Ngāti Parau, our Pacific Island Trust, Samoan, Tonga and Cook Island, Fiji and whānau, our kura, including Kura Kaupapa Māori, Te Punareo, Puikaiti, Cornerstone Preschool, GDC and our neighbouring communities. So over the last year, we've just been having early conversations, but as I said, there's more to be had, and that's our big push. But currently, we need the help of the council because the land is on native reserve land, and we would like to enter into an agreement with the council to lease that land, hence our coming to you to share the vision. Before we can go any further into the project, that is the key thing that we're needing in order to progress. You may ask around how much will all of this cost? Again, early stages of trying to project our budget and our overall costs, but right now we're looking at least 2.3 million. We have had some early support from Just Tide Awhiti just to help with some initial draft plans for our building project. We are hugely thrilled and delighted to have the backing of the Ministry of Education with just under 1.2 million that they have approved to support this project, particularly particularly because it focuses on the culture, language and identities of Māori and our Pacific families. Our organisation, we're able to contribute at least 300,000 and possibly more. And we do have to still do further funding applications from our community at around 800K. And we still need to apply for some grants. I'm having conversations with Trust Tairāwhiti and looking at others such as Jane Williams, some other community fundraising. Our families want to fundraise, which is really exciting. Some Māori language support as well as some Pacific Island grants. So just a draft time of planning. We've been having early conversations since last year, end of last year. We've been talking with Laird and his team around the lease process, hence our hui today. We've begun the resource consent, a step of faith to start all of that mahi. So already we're doing reports on the soil, traffic, noise, all of those things are in play with the support of the resource consent planning team. We're looking at, if all goes well, in regards to the building project that we open in January 2023. So lots of work to be done, but initially we really do need the support of the council to get the project moving from a dream to a reality. So that's basically it from me. I'll just invite you to have any questions.
Yes, thoughts?
So I just wanted to clarify that the croquet land, did you say that is currently on native reserve, that's currently got a native reserve status? And you,
Sorry.
Parks and
Parks and
reserves.
reserves.
Good, thank you.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Faringi.
It's more of a process question for us as council, but I just wanted to ask it here before the rest of the conversation we've gone up. First off, tēnei te nui kia koe, Christine, mo tō mihi mai kia mātou. E wan nui te te pūnei kia koe ki tō. I assume that we'll be getting a paper back in regards to possibilities from staff. Thank you.
So I was trying to catch one of the other directors. Yes, we'll bring something back. We're happy to take an action and wait for us to continue to work with the Kindergarten Association and then come back with where that outcome gets to.
Yes, please.
Councillor Seaman.
Thank you. Thanks very much for your presentation. My question is to the council officers. So have the Croquet Club finished paying a lease on the land at the moment?
Yes, they have.
Sounds great.
Councillor Buston.
Just know that the market for me, we've been approached by you pointing out that we should be aware of.
Through the chair, not at this stage, but we'd bring all of those things back in a report that will come back.
All right, thank you. So, yeah, there's work to be done by staff. So we'll keep in touch with them.
Kia ora tātou, ngā mihi.
Thank you very much.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I do have a petition to present, and I'm sorry that it hasn't made it to this table, but I did check with the mayor to which committee it should be presented, and it's with respect to Makarori, and I did that 10 days ago, but I know it hasn't. So, and the mayor is nodding. So I just like to present to the Ops Committee because it's just part of the greater picture that's been going on, and it simply says we're petitioning for vehicles to be prohibited from driving on the beach except if they are launching a boat or are an emergency vehicle that surf life-saving or have otherwise been authorised to do so by the council. And that 2, the dunes be protected, and 3, the wilding pines behind the houses be removed. We are the kaitiaki of this area and no longer want to see our environment abused. So I just hand this petition over.
Thanks. All right, note the receipt of that petition. Okay, moving on, any extraordinary business? No. Notice of motions? And adjourned business, we have none. So we'll move on to report infrastructure services, page 15. That's Dave.
So for the operations committee, just each of the hubs will present their major projects and then the updates for each of the areas. So luckily for me, Lifelines is up first. So rather than go down into every single detail of the projects, are you okay if we take the reports as read, and are happy to take questions from any part of the major projects for infrastructure services? So that's drainwise, wastewater management options, Waipawa, flood control scheme, the walking and cycling work that we have on at the moment, and Tuhi Kaiti.
Yep, that's fine. Councillor Seymour.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a question. It's on page 19 with respect to the initial capital works project. I just wondered why, and it's down at the very bottom in the last brown box, the drainwise project, and we say we're slightly behind schedule at this stage, but significant increase in costs are expected as the consent process proceeds. So I'm struggling to understand why there would be a significant increase in costs at that stage when I thought we would have had the project designed and budgeted and know what the consenting process was about.
So through the chair, that is in respect to the consenting requirements and the information that we need to go into the consents under the freshwater plan, and given the changes that we need to have with the technology that we're putting into the stormwater system. So under the freshwater plan, we have to have more information as to our assessment of environmental effects to actually make sure we're able to articulate the technology that we're putting in, that it is actually going to mitigate the environmental effects, but then also that it's not going to cause any adverse effects on the environment. So we're working through that part of it, which is our part as the consent applicant. We have to provide that information, and it's substantially more than what was previously required.
Thank you very much. And just subsequent to that, so there's very smart new technology, which I understand. Is it being tested somewhere else? So we know it's going to work and it's going to deliver what we expect from it, or is it just something very new because I know we're at the front end of putting in that type of technology?
So through the chair, a lot of these are tried technologies from across New Zealand and Australia that we're putting in. They're new to us here in Tairāwhiti. So a lot of it is articulating. If you remember those councillors, the inner harbour, there were some chambers that you would have seen put into the stormwater system there. They look like a really big concrete box, almost the size of this table that we're sitting in. Inside of it, the prominent layers that the water filters through before it goes out. We have to show that those work and that they're going to work for the catchments and the size of water that's going to drain into them. So it's some of those things depending on where they go into. So it's tried and true technology.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Lawrence, and then
Thank you, David. I'm on page 38, and I just had a question in regards to the 1,000-year walk bridge. And I vaguely remember that we did put some money aside, or we have spent some money buying steel. Is that the 755 that's referred to on page 40? And then so that's good. So my next question is, we are fully dependent on external funding for this. We've applied for a few and have not been successful, which to me in this post-COVID time means that it might be some time before we can secure the external funding. Is it our intention to hang on to the products that we already have, or move them on, and then when it's time, just enter into that transaction again?
So through the chair, we're going to bring a paper back to council around exhausting all of the last funding options that we have, but then also the value of the steel. So if we were to sell that steel if need be, if our last funding options don't look like they're going to be successful.
Thank you.
Councillor Horst, not then Councillor Dowson.
Tanks and encouraging new builds to install tanks and all sorts. Have we any points where we've got links to any of that narrative? Is it part of any work stream that we're working on at the moment, or is it still just an idea?
So through the chair, it's something that we have looked at previously in the past. The issue with rainwater tanks on downpipes is typically when we need them, the tanks are full. So there are systems, and so they don't actually end up because they're not being used during winter. So if you put a 10,000 litre tank on and it's not going back into the house or being used, by the end of winter, the tank's just going to keep topping over. There are systems that we've looked at where you can have slow release tanks that will absorb it and then release it after a few days' time. However, we're not at that stage yet of diminishing returns, I suppose. We're still at the front end of trying to remove gully traps and downpipes is our big push at the moment. So it's not something we're at that stage of being able to get to.
Yes, that is the rest of my question, which is around compliance and enforcement strategy and on page 22, the private property pilot. So to what extent are we, have we seen the compliance and enforcement strategy, or is that yet to come to us? And with regards to the pilot, I mean, I can't emphasise enough how much faster our progress will be if we are working, doing our other stuff, and the private sector is also picking up the slack on their end, rather than us trying to do it all with our limited funds and limited resources. So I fully support that, that pilot. Can you tell me a little bit more about the compliance enforcement and that pilot, please?
So through the chair, for the DrainWise program, we have a compliance and enforcement program that comes into effect in the next long-term plan, and that's due to some of the factors around the affordability for that, but then also what happens with property owners that can't afford to be able to do those changes. The pilot that we've done has been quite successful, where we've been working with a number of catchments in Kaiti, going through and pointing out fixes to homeowners who have been able to do things. The other part of the pilot has been public drains on private property initiative, which of course has $750 a year that we've been putting out, reducing multiple properties, draining them into one public drain and then taking it out onto the street or dealing with it where it needs to be done. So that project is part of the DrainWise update and the capital program update we can talk to in the next papers.
Councillor Dowson.
Thank you. Through the chair, just another question on the 1,000-year Walkbridge. Understanding there's a paper coming. I just wanted to know when we're likely to see that paper, and if the funding that's already been provided has a time frame associated with it, because several funds are time dependent.
So through the chair, we have had conversations last week with the funder that has given us the majority of the funds to date. They have given us time to investigate the last couple of options that we have available for the shortfall. So we have a time frame of, I think it's 3 weeks for us to bring that back. We'll give them an update. We'll be looking at a paper coming to probably the next meeting is what we'll be timing.
Sorry, what does that mean to what does that mean to decision making? If we've got 3 weeks to inform them, we won't likely see a paper in that stage, in that time. If we don't have a suitable answer in 3 weeks, does that mean that the paper is going to come back to us with we're handing back the money? Or does it mean that it's coming back to us with we have X amount of time to make a decision on what we're going to do next?
So the chair, sorry to clarify, they're after an update from us as to where we are in that process. We've told them that it'd be a council decision for that to go back, and that we'd have to be able to hit the agenda's timeframes. They were fine with that. They were supportive of us exploring all options before any discussion about handing money back. Was they wanted us to exhaust everything else first.
Thank you. My around that bridge as well, because and I don't necessarily expect an answer now, but can you cover off the status of the steel? And I understand the status of the storage of it, but there's a rumour in the community that it needs to be moved, and a whole lot of other things that you might like to reflect on for us. Thank you.
So through the chair, we know where the steel is. The steel's sitting in Hawke's Bay in the yard down there. There has been rumours that it needed to be moved by 4 months ago. Still sitting in the same yard. It's stored as materials off site, so it's fine. We're working that through with the landowner and where it is now.
Councillor Shelder.
Thank you. The stop bank work, is that tracking on time and going well, David?
Through the chair, that project is tracking fantastically well. So they're actually ahead of schedule at the moment. They've had a really good run with the weather and the ground conditions. So they've already, this week they will finish the section that they started at the front there. So they've moved all the installation of the wing walls and everything went really well on those drains. So it's going really well. Chair, that's $3 million.
It adds up. Yeah. Just on that, references to the stop bank always say it's protecting 10,000 hectares of fertile plain. It's actually protecting the city, and I think that should be noted as well. You know. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson, page 16, point 7 or paragraph 7, final bullet point. Says targeted smoke testing and CCTV footage in Wainui Road and Rutini Road to identify sources of inflow. So several months ago, some staff spoke to us about an incident where it would appear, despite opening the scale, water pressure didn't drop, probably more than several months ago now. I know I've spoken to you a couple of times about the smoke testing. Is that implying there that smoke testing is yet to be done and that potential cross-pollination of pipes is yet to be identified? Because I would have thought that's a significant priority.
Through the chair, that has been underway since that June event. So we have been working back through. I think we're up to about 9 faults that we've found that have come into the system. So cross-connection of pipes, but we haven't found the major contributor that we were looking for yet. So we're still working our way back through. So with the Kaiti catchment, a lot of it goes back into the Wainui Road interceptor. So we're working our way back out through there. We've done a lot of the works around Encliffe, Kaiti School, on the other side and towards Ida, those things to see what's feeding in and where. We've found a number of small things that we've been able to rectify, but we haven't found the one big thing we've been looking for yet. The work is still ongoing.
Commentary. So is it still possible that there was a contractor fault in the big Rutini Road works?
Through the chair, we've dismissed, so we've discounted that it was not the Rutini Road works. We've done that end of it.
Next question was paragraph 29 on page 21. Under the risks of the project, it just speaks about unrealistic expectations of when the program success will be evident. Unrealistic expectations of whom, by whom, and if it's the community, is that not then a comms failure by us?
Through the chair, it is by the community. There's a lot of expectation around with the money that we're spending that we're not seeing a difference now. And it's around, we've been consistent with our comms that this is something that takes time for us to work through. And it's difficult to, as the committee knows, to compare rain events with rain events. So this is very much around, you may not see a change in the first 2 to 3 years, but then by years 5 to 7, we would absolutely expect a change. At the moment, anecdotally, the team is seeing a difference. The big downpour that we had the other night, normally that would have tipped us over. The system handled it fine. So yes, everything clicked on, pumps, everything started going, but it handled it. But I can't sit here and hand on heart say to you, see, drain-wise is making a difference, because it's one big downpour does not prove that what we've done. So it is only anecdotal, unfortunately, at this stage, because we can't measure the different inputs to the outputs.
Thanks for that. Councillor Brown.
Your last statement was what I was kind of wanting to ask. And all things we talk about in our major projects, we learn along the way, things didn't work out. We had to budget more for this, et cetera, et cetera. So with all these projects, which are huge for region, and as you say, many of our residents don't go and check out drains so much and see where money is spent. David, are we taking on realising the infrastructure, costs are blowing out because of lack of investment, from decades before. So we are certainly playing a catch-up game that will need ongoing investment. So we'll still need to ensure government understands this region, like many regions, needs constant investment to pipes, to flood schemes and all those factors. So we're keeping that data, and as you said, in different rain events, etc. Because with the 3 Ps promotion that we did, I saw that garnered some success, but we still need to keep at it with our community, don't we? So just the learnings and all the added, because I don't want to see drain-wise just be targeted in one space and then it pops up in another part of the region that we have to continue this project because of all the connection, the network. So just overall, are you seeing benefits to what we're learning about our region's infrastructure?
Through the chair, one of the key things in the last long-term plan was the investment in investigation and our asset condition assessment budgets for us, particularly in the Three Waters space. So we have cameraed large parts of our network. We have been able to also then have, so it's one thing to camera the network, it's then actually having the engineers to sit down and understand what they're looking at as the camera goes down the pipe and those things to then inform our investment decisions. So for us, we've got a really good understanding of the need for investment in our infrastructure across all of our assets. So that's part of something we can absolutely articulate, but it's also knowing where those things are failing faster than not. And that's the key thing driving our spending.
Thanks, David. Page 35, walking and cycleways, number 5 there, we've got the evaluation of the Wainui to Inner Harbour, and there was a bit of a hiccup with the consent due to a flood hazard. And we were hopeful that the consent was going to be issued by 30th of October. Has that gone through, do you know?
Sorry, through the chair, I'll just have to check to make sure that it was issued.
Okay, so that flood hazard, where was it?
Through the chair, the
Yes, no.
hazards that are there, we can articulate there on private properties. We're just working those through with those landowners.
Okay, if there's nothing further.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, we didn't hear what you were saying just then. The coral's looking. So.
Sorry, I had a question on item 5, which was the issuing of a resource consent for the Wainui to Inner Harbour cycleway. And the consent was due to be issued on the 30th of September. And I was wanting to know whether it had been issued.
Over, Mr. Chair.
Yep. Isn't that what I said?
You said.
I'm happy to move this back.
Thank you. Move.
It's still waiting.
Okay, thank you. Okay, it's been moved by Mayor Stoltz and seconded by Councillor Dowsing. Nothing further? All those in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, Community Lifelines update, page 41, and there is a presentation.
So through the chair, just while Heather's pulling that up, what we thought we'd do in this paper is show you the work program that we have upcoming and also what we have upcoming through the Christmas period. One of the questions from the last committee was around foresight of what's coming up, what we were trying to do, and articulating better what we call our silly season as we do the rush up into Christmas, so you understand what it is we're doing. So what we'll do is just a quick overview of some of the projects that you don't normally see, because we don't really talk about them and then normally we cover them up. So you don't really see what's happening in the ground. So the big thing that we've been doing at the moment has been around our Four Waters infrastructure, and we call it the tree streets. So this is Pine Street, Oak Street, Elm Street. These are all the ones that come off Stout Street. So all of those has been where our water team has been really busy. The large roll of pipe sitting in the middle was a really key thing for us to do, and you would have seen it on Ormond Road if you drove past when we were doing it outside Magapapa School there in the school holidays. So the team had to thrust that pipe through while there was nobody there. For us, it's been a really successful program with Fulton Hogan. It's been rolled out really well. We've had very little issues as we've done it. It's been rolled out ahead of time. For the other part that's sitting in Four Waters, just to the right, sorry, my right, the Cure in Place. So what I want to point out here is on that, well, the picture you're looking at there is the inside of a pipe. It's a concrete pipe, and you can see that rusty line coming through. That's the reinforcing within the pipe. So the pipe has eroded away, the concrete has come off, and the inside of it, from the outside, it looks absolutely fine. From the inside of it, we've actually already lost half the depth. So that's the steel reinforcing is being exposed. As you can imagine, if a pipe's getting to that stage, it's not going to take very long for us to have what we have on the far side of it, which is an emergency water main renewal, which we've been having a number of because of the issue that we have on the other side of the pipe. So those are the ones that are perfect though for our Cure in Place, and our Cure in Place team was here up until this rain hit, and then we sent them home. So they have got a big program that we're rolling out at the moment. The biggest one we'll do this stretch will be Palmerston Road there. We'll be doing a Cure in Place along there for a wastewater pipe. And with our wastewater pipes, it's simply just the acids broken down the concrete and exposed that rebar. So cure in place is where we put that this epoxy liner through the middle, so that pipe will then be good for at least another 50 years. So a lot of that's been rolled out, and the team's done a really good run-off process around that too. One that people don't really see, this is up at Wainaki. So you can see the stream bridges there. That's what they look like before, and then what they look like after, that photo in the middle there. One of the biggest dangers that we have with Wainaki is those bridge refurbishments, is they're all covered in lead-based paint. So scraping that off above a very significant catchment like the Te Aroai, making sure it doesn't get into the Te Aroai, is a huge focus for the team. But that's a $900,000 a year program that's happening just as we work our way down those bridge replacements. But as you can see before and after, it's a lot stronger, it's not corroding, and it's going in a lot better way. The last picture there on that slide is Retini Road, and that was just to show you some of the clashes that we have along that. None of those pipes running perpendicular are supposed to be at that depth, so they all had to be rechanged.
So David, just the previous slide, we talked about the mains breakings. I noticed in yesterday's agenda, one of the ones that got lost when my thing lost its things, you spoke about there's been a significant increase in mains breaks in Q1. Is that what you're talking about? And is it specifically the Tree Roads area, or is it other areas?
So through the chair, it's in other areas as well. So the tree areas are up and past for replacement, which is why we're focusing on them. We do have other areas where we've got that asbestos cement pipes. Those are the ones that are brittle. They're the ones that are breaking. And it's at this time of year, as pressures start to go up in the network, that's when we see things start to go. So we have a replacement, which is just fix short sections, and then we have just pull the whole section out, put a new one in.
Approximately how many kilometres of that pipe work are left and are vulnerable?
Simon, would you know that one off the top of your head? We have about 52 of just the clay, to be probably 40 something maybe. I'd have to come back and check with you, sorry, Councillor Robinson. That's just the asbestos clay, so it's quite a bit. So this is Waipawa flood control scheme. So this is the team cranked back up down there. So this is right down by the river mouth where they've been doing a lot of their works. I think we've got, so this is, you kind of can't see the picture of scale of the size of that blue tractor, but you can see people standing on the side there. You actually don't come up. And before you say anything, no, not just me, but regular sized people too, don't come up to the size of the wheels. So that thing is moving an amazing amount of dirt out there at the moment. When we click over to the next phase, happy to take the councillors out on a tour to see exactly what they're doing out there, because it is really impressive. Matt and his team have done a really good job there. Clackcott Dam, as you can see, it's full. So we'd hope that this time of year it's very full given the amount of rain that we've had at the moment. But also we've been doing a lot of work in the operations space there, getting things ready for the summer, including the running of Waipawa. So the Waipawa has been going really well for us. All of the commissioning's gone well. We have the softener in for this season. A lot of really important upgrades have been happening there. They're very much BAU ones, but upgrading the system there that makes us know that our water is safe to drink, all of those things. So a lot of maintenance. That team has done a huge amount of work over winter getting everything ready. And this is, as I was talking about, public drains on private property. So this is the sort of stuff that we're talking about. So Councillor Worsnoff, around new drain goes in, as you can see, going out to a sump out in the middle of the street, and that drains multiple properties. The other one there, the Kokua Whakapara stream, that's the sort of cleanup that we're doing when we talk about those streams need cleaning up to help water flow through better. Yeah. And Jenny's Ops, I'll quickly go through this, but this is some of the work that you haven't been able to see. So up at Tau Whareparai, there, on the right there, those retaining walls, there are 7 of those that have been done to help stop where we've had constant dropouts over and over again. Same with Tiniroto and Bushy Knoll. Councillors familiar with up there, that is a dropout that has been on the discussions for years, shall we say. So it's really neat to see that being done, and really well, properly designed fixes going into these areas that are lasting. Those Tau Whareparai retaining walls. We had a couple of them that had substantial slips fall on them. We couldn't see them in that during rain event. Quite happy to say that was actually one of the ones that got covered in a slip and was absolutely fine once we dug it out, hadn't moved anywhere. Curries will tell you that's because they built it, but that's okay. And then Arakehi, for the councillors who would remember back in 2018, this was one of our worst affected roads from some culverts and some massive dropouts on that road. These culverts, these box culverts we've put in, as you can see, far bigger wing walls, way bigger structures that have gone in through there. The side of that hill is very, very steep and through there, so it's been a really challenging job for us. However, we'll say it's been fantastic with the local community up there, working with them around our road closures for heavy traffic, but then also for working with them around the forests that need to come out through there. And we very much appreciate the patience of the community and the foresters for being able to let us block that road completely. So they haven't been coming down through there with heavies to give us the time to be able to run this out for them. So they have been really good to work with. I think that's just more PGF work that we've got going on all across the district. So yeah, I think that's, yeah, we've got quite a bit going on, as you can see from everything. But happy to take, oh, sorry, we'll just quickly touch on waste management. And just as I do, I think Phil's left the room. So waste management, they've had a huge run with around their campaigns that they've been doing, the big belly bins that have gone in as well. And of course, the grade 5 plastics has been done as well successfully. So that's very much been driven by Laird and the team in waste management, getting it over the line for solid waste. So that's just sort of the touch highlight points for us. Happy to take any questions on that or anything that's in the report there on page 41 as well.
Yeah, thanks for that, Dave. Lots of stuff going on for sure. Questions, councillors? Councillor Watson.
Private bridge, or is it a private bridge?
Called it, isn't it, Dave?
It's just called it by.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying that. And the other, we obviously haven't had these sensor films under for very long. Do we have a bit of an idea of how much time these saving us? Are they doing what they're supposed to do in terms of reducing the amount of trips and servicing them? And are they, you're not being penalised, I take it, because I know they look a little bit fragile with the solar thing on top.
Through the chair, I understand, haven't got those numbers back from waste management as to how much the operations, but they haven't been vandalised yet.
All right, nothing.
Mr. Wilson, how do those big belly bins compact? Well, it says they compact. It says they compact the rubbish inside them. How does that work?
Yeah, a little man with a sledgehammer.
It's like a hydraulic that pushes it down. So yeah, yeah.
Councillor Carter-Brown.
Mr. Wilson, I'm just a query because I notice more and more, obviously now with social media, we've got people that will utilise that space to show forth after a rainstorm. And I noticed on my feed recently a picture showing some sludge in the Kōpua, that space. But I'm just wondering whether that's been helpful to, mitigating against, things happening. You get that feedback to you immediately, or council does, or it's often played out in the social media space and it looks bad and everyone has their say, etc. But we've got people that are, undertaking to watch and keep care of kaitiaki of certain awa, and so is that feedback immediately to council? Is it helpful that that space happens, because it does highlight key issues in region? But I just noticed that was something that came up yesterday.
Through the chair, social media has been great at pointing things out to us. Unfortunately for us, we can't be across the hundreds of thousands of pages or posts that people are putting up all the time. So we very much do want people to put in a request for service. If there's something in a stream that shouldn't be there, then it's the pollution response call out. So we want people to use the formal channels. We do watch, and the comms team that's something a lot of us, particularly in a rain event, will be flicking through the pages to see what's going on. But it is definitely want people to put in request for service or call the pollution response number, because that's how we can get out and get the right people informed.
Councillor Wharehinga.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Actually, earlier on in the meeting, I was going to suggest moving one of the papers forward because it would be of public interest to the people that are in the room. But the two papers that have kind of gone on are actually really quite interesting, you know, and I don't know, maybe it's just my local government nerd hat on, but I thought that these would be really, really exciting for our community members to see too. So first off, I'm happy to move the report. Second, I want to commend staff in regards to the mahi that's coming up. I did want to share a concern, I guess, similar to what Councillor Worsnop had brought up around the monitoring of levels of rubbish. I know from my own personal conversations around last summer is that those sensors were just going off in terms of being topped up. So there was lots and lots of activity there, which was great, but also then that affects I guess our contractual responsibilities between ourselves and Waste Services. So I did just want to bring that up pre this coming summer. Kia ora.
Councillor Faulkner.
Much. Just one question, and it's something I've raised, I think it was actually almost pre-COVID, the idea of some simple and nimble recycling options for our rural communities. We talked about some of the models through the Marlborough Sounds, for example. Just wondered whether or not there'd been any follow-up on that at all.
So through the chair, and apologies for councillors who keep hearing me saying the WMMP, that's where we want to bring those things back to you. So I know Darnell and Laird was looking at these things around how those services are delivered. So we will bring those back to you in the new year around what are the things and levers that we're going to do and the cost implications and how the whole waste segment is cut up. So we will bring that back in the new year too.
Councillor Seymour.
Thank you. Just a question. It's item 30 on page 46 around the design underway for bridge abutment on Wigan and Ripperoa. Is it anticipated that the work will also be done in the summer construction season on Wigan, because it is carrying quite a big workload, carrying a weight load, and it's been around for ages?
Through the chair, my understanding is Wigan is for this construction season, so we're just working through our resourcing and making sure we get those designs right, but it will be done this construction season.
All right, thank you. It's just a noting report. It's been moved by Councillor Wharehinga and seconded by Councillor Akaara-Brown. Nothing further. All those in favour? Against? Carried. And we'll move on to the Natural Heritage Fund, page 51. Thank you.
They all look good projects. Thank you.
All right, if there's no further discussion on that, they're all recognised as being good projects. Moved by Councillor Seymour, seconded by Councillor Burdett. All those in favour? Against? Carried. We will take a cup of tea break for 15 minutes and then we'll get into the next item. Okay, page 61, which is Endeavour Models. Just a briefing on how I want to proceed with this. I'd like to discuss recommendation 1A entirely first and come to a vote on that one, and then we'll move to the recommendations 1B and C. So discussion at this stage, if you can just keep it to the commence with installation of the one model in Uawa, Tolaga Bay, subject to feasibility considerations with a view that remain the responsibility of the council manager. And don't be concerned because you will get plenty of time to discuss the other recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm happy to move 1A slightly modified. We all know that Te Autanga Hauiti came here representing themselves and the Tolaga Bay community and are really keen to have one of the models in Uawa. However, I have had a discussion at morning tea with the Chief Executive over the terminology, and I'd like to move that 1A now reads, gift one model to the Te Autanga Hauiti Hauora and the Tolaga Bay community. Beg your pardon, I shouldn't say Hauora, it's Te Autanga Hauiti and the Tolaga Bay community, and support the community with the installation. Because they could not proceed, so that's the resolution. They couldn't proceed to determine exactly where it was to go until they've had consultation with their community. And they couldn't do that until they knew we were going to give them one. So it's a two-step process. So if this is passed today, then the community and Te Autanga Hauiti will be able to have that conversation with the community and determine its location. That's the reason for the amendment. Thank you.
Yep. No concerns from staff? No? All right. So that's
Sorry.
been moved by Councillor Seymour and seconded by
The Mayor.
Councillor Burdett.
So,
Anything further? Councillor Robertson.
yeah, well, just on that wording, you could achieve in my submission the similar effect or same effect by simply amending the current recommendation to subject to site feasibility considerations and full consultation with that community. Because then that remains the onus of us commencing installation of the model. It remains council's responsibility, but we've after consultation with them, I just sort of captured more the legal feasibilities of it.
Who's the wordsmiths around here? Yeah, it's been moved under. Yeah. Yeah. So nothing further on that? All right, all those in favour? Against? Carried. All right, the next two recommendations directs the Chief Executive to pursue the permanent or temporary installation of one model in an appropriate location such as either the Tairāwhiti Museum or East Coast Museum of Technology. Sort of such as jumped out at me. It's kind of like e.g. and that kind of could put the onus on the Chief Executive to find a installation site. Did anyone else read it that way, or is it just my? Yeah, yeah. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. So we've all agreed, number one, a model goes to Uawa as their request. It's clear from the paper that we, the council, owns both models. If the question around ownership equaling guardianship of the models is that, well, one was funded by the community and we've only really funded one, then we've only got guardianship and ownership of one, then I say the one that goes to Uawa was the community funded one and we are left holding the other one. It puts the Chief Executive in an enviable position, options B and C. In light of the submissions that we have heard and in light of our obligations to mana whenua, tangata whenua, my position on this would be that recommendation B should read, the other model is not erected. Simple, in line with the recommendations of the kōrero under paragraph on page 71, paragraph, the box which talks about the first box at the bottom of page 71, the bottom right-hand box, the bottom of page 71. Under option C, which is decided to not erect one or both models. So we've determined one model goes to Uawa, and that's wholly appropriate. In relation to the remaining model, My suggestion would be that option B simply says the other model is not erected. Implicitly, council deals with it as it sees fit, and whether that's on another day from now, having put further thought into this. But my preference is we end this process now, and we simply own our model, own our actions, and own our responsibilities, and simply say, yep, one can go to Hoiti, we own the other one, and we're simply not going to erect it in accordance with our determination on the submissions, and that's it. End of the model, end of the story.
Councillor Shelton.
Thank you. I totally disagree with the previous speaker. I think I like the thought of page 68, the recommendation there for the statement. We know that the curator of the museum has publicly stated in a personal submission she doesn't want it at the museum. I had a call at 8 o'clock this morning from Peter Omar, who's the president of the Museum of Technology. They do not want it out there. It is part of our history. One is going up the coast based on a request. I absolutely think that if proceed to erect one model within the Gisborne District urban area situated on or near the inner harbour waterfront, subject to site feasibility considerations, be the placement of the second piece of art.
Can we bring the conversation back to the recommendations as they stand, and then perhaps see whether they have got any legs before we all come up with our own individual recommendation of a location? Councillor Housen. Councillor Seymour.
Can we debate those
Yep.
B and C?
Yep, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't think that they are particularly practical, nor do they take into account all of the submissions that we heard, and they proceed on page 65 of our papers. And so while we heard strong messages about opposition to the original locations, albeit that is the one that the greatest number of our population have supported, the next greatest number have supported, and while the word is Gisborne waterfront, I think that could mean a variety of places. So I'm just signalling that I would be voting against the recommendations B and C as they stand. Frankly, I think it is insulting to suggest that the model be given back to the fundraisers, because in actual fact, people raised the money to make it available for the community on the understanding of 2 years ago. So I don't think giving it back and saying, we're not going to do anything about it so you can work with it is really a fair go. So I just flag I can't support B and C, and I do support the suggestion with further debate that Councillor Sheldrake has raised.
Okay. Weston.
So as a community, we've heard feedback from certain parts of our community that say the boats is a symbol of a historic event. And we've heard lots of feedback about putting the Endeavour models back where they were. On the other side, us councillors have been to Hui with iwi. We heard of the real hurt and the wrongs that was brought with seeing those symbols up in our city. So to me, I think before we even started with decision making, councillors amongst each other were clear that it would be inappropriate for us not to listen to those voices and put them back at the original locations. And I think as we went through this process and we learned about the hurt, all of us, I see Councillor Seymour nodding, learned that history, and we agreed that it's not appropriate to put it up in those, especially on a PO, which is very significant. I personally has always felt, and this is why I feel I support B, but I'll come back to B a little bit. I've always thought there's still an appropriate, it's part of our history, and maybe at the museum where there could be storyboards or a plinth, or there could be appropriate, it could be appropriately accommodated as part of our history. We're not putting it up as this majestic thing in the middle of our city, but what we are still doing is acknowledging that the Endeavour came here, and maybe there is an appropriate place for us to tell that story. And that's why I personally always leaned towards the museum. But then I am concerned that there's a recommendation here, B, which states that it should go to the museum or the other one, the East Coast Museum of Technology, and that staff made that recommendation, but that we didn't do our work beforehand and speak to them. And even though the museum has made submissions against not having it, that doesn't mean that we can't have further discussions, because lots of people have told us their view and where they lean. And at the end of the day, we're trying to make a decision for 50,000 people, trying to start a healing process. So I have always personally leaned towards gifting one to Uawa, and then maybe appropriately having one at the museum grounds where it could be put into context, because the Endeavour did come here. But I am concerned that our staff did not touch base or haven't furthered any discussions. And I might be wrong, I might make an assumption now, but I am concerned when Councillor Sheldrake mentions that he had a phone call this morning, and then, but yes, so I do think it can be appropriately accommodated at the museum if we can have those discussions with them. And they made a submission, but so have many other people. That's me.
Councillor Haka-Brown.
Kia ora. I guess I want to start in this space to really apologise to the community, because in my role as a district councillor, due diligence is an expectation. And in 2018, when we heard the 50 cents worth, I think in that space for me personally, other than asking about waka haurua and other connectors to the shared history of this region, I perhaps didn't ask for the detail that we currently have now in respect to these two replica that were built for such a time as 1969. And in 1969, when the commemoration of James Cook happened in this region, the bicentenary, these two little replica, well, they weren't little, but these two replica were built as decorations, as per the reports that I've read now from staff. And I want to congratulate staff. This has not been easy, and it certainly has got a lot more conversation to be had, I'm sure. But in the processes we have as council, we generally just go through a process space, which is wrong in this instance, because in 1969, tangata whenua were never engaged to ask, how do you feel about these two replica commemorative decorations, as also with the James Cook statue we received from the brewery that went up on Te Tarangi. So we are trying to do right. We're trying to make good of a situation that has been in situ process that we've just tagged along with. They came down because they were falling down, and then they were resurrected and fixed. Again, no consultation to that process. It was simply done, and they kept getting put back up until, of course, they were unable to be repaired, and a group of people were interested enough to get fundraised, etc. So we want to accept that there were those who were really intent on having these two replica up in our region. I'm sitting here today in my essence of making a good decision for my region, and as our mayor has just said, grateful that Uawa came into this space and gave us that option. And so thank you, Hoiti, for that speech and that submission. To this region, to all of you who submitted, thank you. But for me, after hearing the stories and sitting with tangata whenua, people that I've known all my life, living here, it's beholden of me to say I'm not happy if one of these is erected in this place because of the pain and the suffering. Now, history is history, and so a museum contains a lot of that we can talk to and look upon, etc. And so I want to honour Ngāti Onione, Rong Whakata, and Tawhiri, I'm trying to remember the other iwi we meet with, sorry. Tā Manuhiri for their kōrero and making me research, study and look into the history of my region. Because if there's one thing that this has brought about is more conversations about the story of my land, my people, and all stories, good, bad and ugly. So I want to honour them today by saying I respect the Chief Executive is given a hard role right now, and I honour that space too. So for me, I would like us to pursue the conversation around where the second replica will go, and further debate that process to get to the right space for it. But today I say thank you to all of those who submitted, and particularly Tangata Whenua. It's great to have your voice at the table. Let's see more of that. Kia ora.
Councillor Whitty.
Very conservative by nature, who believes in history, and history doesn't change. The facts speak for themselves. First thing I want to say is this is a very unfair imposition of the Chief Executive for her to find a destination for the sole remaining replica. I have no issue personally if it goes up anywhere in the city, the waterfront. I support what Terry has said, but let's put this to bed and stop procrastinating.
Councillor Wharenga.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll stand. That's just how I'm built. History. I've heard a lot about history while we've been on this Endeavours journey. I've heard the Endeavours replica referred to as symbols of colonisation. I've heard to them being referred to as pieces of art, and both are true. I've heard that Cook and his crew were great navigators. I've also heard that Cook and his crew were murderers. I've heard that the crew were tyrannical in Tūranganui-a-Kiwa, and I've also heard that the crew were well behaved in Ua. These are the stories of our people, and all those things still ring true today. Dual nature of our stories, the dual nature stories of our historical figures run through and through all of those people that we look up to as tupuna, right? And I bring up Te Arau Paraha as an example because he's been used actually by as a tool of an argument against historical representations and monuments, right? Incorrectly. So Te Arau Paraha is revered in his rohe, but also reviled in another place where he wreaked havoc. But we're still able to honour that tupuna. As elected representatives, we need to respect how these dual nature kōreros are represented in our community. Like Councillor Akuata Brown had said, in 1969, these things were put up as decorations, and then a decision was just made to just permanently leave them up, which is such bad process. So if the conversation and the process we need to enact now needs to fix up what happened back in 1969. I've also heard that council shouldn't be changing decisions of past councils, but that's not true. That's exactly what councils do, because past councils get things wrong. We are elected to make tough decisions, and this table should take ownership of this second endeavour. That's why I'll second the recommendations that Councillor Dowsing put forward, because of the phrasing such as. So it's not saying we'll specifically talk to these ones or specifically talk to these ones and then we just give it back to them. I feel that that phrasing's a cop-out, but it's such as that I'll be binding this organisation too, because we do need to have a conversation about this. We're elected to make tough decisions. We're elected to listen to everybody in this community, and this table needs to take ownership of this other endeavour. We're the council now, and we need to rectify things that councils had done in the past. I do agree with Mayor Stoltz in regards to the museum being the appropriate place, because we do need to have a space in order to be able to have an honest discussion about history. The majority of people that have spoken to me about this have been concerned about the historical telling. And a monument just placed out there as a poor vehicle to be able to fully tell a history, right? Which is why I was supportive of it going to the museum. However, we have heard from people saying the museum aren't keen. The Transport Museum also aren't keen. The such as in that second recommendation obligates us to continue the conversation in order to be able to accurately tell that history. And so that's why I definitely support one going up at Uawa, and I definitely do support that second part. And it such as obligates this table to continue doing that work in regards to the conversations that we have in the community. The conversation needs to be had. We messed this up. We need to own this. So that's why I support what Councillor Dowson put forward.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. To a certain extent, I take the same view as Josh, particularly around taking ownership. So actually, before I start, I really want to thank the people who came and submitted to us. I clearly remember having read through all the written submissions and just feeling with how significantly divergent those views were, and thinking how we can reconcile this. And then the submissions, and we had almost entirely the people who have sat before us were doing their best for our region and accommodate one another. I really especially want to acknowledge Teddy. Yeah, that was the most beautiful submission I've ever heard. But to that point, the submissions, I have not spoken to one single Pākehā person who wants us to just assess and decide. I've also not spoken to one Māori person who wants us to accept them. So that left me in a very difficult place, and it's really only been in the last few days that I've come to kind of settle. And I think culture's not homogenous, right? You can't put something up and say, this represents all of us. Because it actually what's become really clear out of this is that these Pākehā waka, for want of a better word, they have had degree of mana instilled in them by the Pākehā of this region. They have made them much more relevant than they were before this process began. But that is the part. It is not that same sense of meaning. It's completely different from Māori. And I think as a council, we need to recognise that. We need to say these are very important parts of our region. That's not shared by the Māori of our region. But similarly, a taonga from Ngāpuhi is not going to be the same as a taonga from Ngāpuhi. No, can we accommodate both of those? I think we can. It starts with treating them with, I think, more respect than option C others. In my view, we disrespect the people who have said to us, this is part of our story, this is part of our identity, and they mean something to us. But at the same time, we cannot say, look, they belong down the street because of all of us, when in actual fact they're not everybody. They're quite clearly not. So for me, I think we need to, I'm uncomfortable with the NC for reasons I've just described. Neither of them respect Wellington enough to, I think, satisfy the import that our Pākehā community is putting in. But in the same vein, I acknowledge they cannot be corrected in the way that many people would have been corrected. And I believe we need to treat them differently. Rather than being a symbol for our region, we need to treat them as something that is special to a specific segment of our society, and we make our decisions based on that.
Thanks. Point of clarity around the recommendations from the CE. Right.
Yes, through your worship, just, sorry, through the chair, just in terms of recommendations B and C, I think it's important to clarify that the appropriate location and such as highlighted, the appropriate locations being either the Tairāwhiti Museum or the East Coast Museum of Technology, and that flows on to recommendation C. If neither of those museums would take it, then it would go back to the community. I wanted to clarify that it wasn't about continuing the dialogue as to where that would go. It's putting a line under it and making a decision. Given, and it is not appropriate for me to find that location if it was an appropriate location, given what we've already been through.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Councillor Dowson?
Thank you. First of all, can I get a point of clarity? And this was around, if this was gifted back and a resource was submitted for these to be erected on private land within the rohe, within the areas of those who have opposed it, mana whenua who have opposed it, would that be notified and would it be challenged?
Yes, through the chair. So it would depend on the location that the group, the community group identified for that, as to whether it would need a resource consent. I'll assume that it would do in terms of public art, as we have with our other public art, and that would be publicly notified.
Okay, thank you. And in that, and to that degree, I assume that council's decision today not to erect in that location would be a fairly clear steer as to some of the guidance towards that resource consent, knowing that it needs to be assessed. But so what I'm trying to clarify is that if council have chosen not to erect it in that area, that would weigh into the consideration for that resource consent, or would it be simply based on engineering principle? And
It would depend on how it was going. So, for example, if you're going to put it on a pole, the impact that might have on the neighbours. So it's the amenity, the other impacts that would need to be taken into account. So, for example, if it was to be, I don't know, just say a residential property in the backyard, you're not putting it on a pole, you're not impacting on anything, you don't need a consent.
Yep.
If you were going to put it on a pole, put it on the main street, outside your building, maybe that you lease, that would have amenity impacts. That would then require consent or and neighbours' input into that as well because of the public impact.
Yes, yeah.
And then, otherwise, I'll throw it over to Helen, our technical.
Yes, it's that scenario of it going on private property in a prominent location in the area that we've that if we to approve this recommendation, we're essentially not promoting erection in particular areas of our city. And what I want to know is if a resource consent was sought for one of those areas on private land, is there consideration to given to more than just the neighbours and the engineering requirement, or is it specifically the neighbouring building and that's it?
I'll ask Helen to comment on that.
Through the chair, so if it can be viewed by the public generally, and it's a piece of art, then the premise would be that you consult the community, so you open the application to submissions from the public generally, as we've done with our own pieces of art, the surfboards and things of that nature. So we do open that sort of consent up because it is something that can be viewed by everybody. But as Nadine said, if it's in a backyard and no one can see it, then it's not public art. It's private.
That's fine. Thank you. I just wanted to know that there was a robust process if that were the case. There's quite a few arguments that have been made today around why or why not to erect, and I think for me it hasn't been about rectifying mistakes of the past. It hasn't been. It's been about a changing of the times. We've gained a lot of knowledge through this process. We've matured a lot through this process and formed some and allowed our decisions to change through the understanding we've gained from our community. And my position is first do no harm. It's erecting this model into another area that has been discussed is just perpetuating the anguish and the harm that has been that is caused within specific communities. And from my point of view, I cannot support that as an ongoing process. I think it's, I think that the first model going up in Uawa is incredible, and it's a sign that Mana Whenua, particular areas, do accept these models, and that is exactly what I'd love to see for the second model, is that an area with a real desire to put it up reaches out and tries to get it and erects it. At the moment, we don't have somewhere for that. Now, either council can choose to put it in storage for lack of a better location, which isn't which is not, in my opinion, as desirable as gifting it back to the community group, who can take action to try to seek a location that is acceptable. Council can't continually work to try to find a location for a piece of art. Art is not our core business. So I don't want to make this I don't want to make this a burden on the chief executive, and understanding specifically that these are the recommendations that came from staff. So the chief executive is comfortable with what's written here. So I'm very happy to for her to seek either placement at either of the museums, and if not, gift it back to the community group if they desire it, and if they don't, then I guess it goes into storage. But we'll reach that when we come to it. Yeah, so I support them as written.
Councillor Reynolds? Sorry.
Kia ora. Thank you. I firstly would like to congratulate the staff, because this report is really well done. It's really well written. It's taken in all of the feedback that we have received, and it's made our decision easier, I think. I also agree with Shannon. I support the recommendations that are there. And yeah, this process has been a huge learning curve, and it's been hard, but I think we've come a long way, and that's where I am. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gregory. Yeah, Councillor Faulkner. Yeah.
So I'm a reasonably black and white sort of an animal, and I can't, yeah, I'm slightly a zebra. I can't believe that we have managed to spend this much time debating a piece of public art when we have got so many other things going on in our world right now that deserve our attention, right? So that's my first thing. I've had so many people say to me, for goodness sake, there are a couple of ships on sticks. And I know everybody in this room would have heard that, right? So they are really clever pieces of art. They are built by talented artists, and I readily acknowledge that. I was personally deeply touched when I discovered that one would be welcome in Tolaga Bay, because I think we collectively heaved a great sigh of relief. If we're honest, we heaved a great sigh of relief right then, right? But equally, I understand and have been welcomed onto marae and welcomed into public places to hear the other side of our story around these boats. And I won't belabor that because we've heard all of that already. I don't believe that the team that fundraised and worked for this wanted to or desired to expand on any hurt and expand on division in our region. I don't believe that they had that at the heart of what they were doing. I believe what they were doing was something that they felt was in their community's interest. And as Kerry's already highlighted, our views can all differ on that, and that's okay. So delighted that one can go to Tolaga Bay. I would like to consider that we as a council can finish this today because we have got really important stuff that we need to get on and do. So by way of a positive invitation, can we ask the team that did the fundraising to work with our chief executive? Because I don't believe that our chief executive should have to make this decision on her own if we are going to cop out and not make the decision ourselves. So I want to be able to let people come to the right decision organically, because that's what happened with Tolaga. It wasn't on the table initially, and now it is. So whilst I'm happy for the conversation to happen around it going to the museum, and I don't think that the East Coast Museum of Technology is the ideal place at all, given that they have a foot traffic of about 2 people a day across a year. That, I believe, is a sign of disrespect for both the fundraising committee and the artists involved. I still find myself deeply conflicted, and I'm going to be honest about that, but I would support tentatively B and C.
Thank you.
As the person that was seconding this, thank you for the clarification, Madam C. Like my colleague, I'm also conflicted too, because I feel that we should own this. And the reason why I feel we should own this is because this table is a representation of our community, and this table could handle this with care. However, I also do agree with the movers' notion of these are the things that the CE has brought to us, and if that's not the case, then it's not on us to be able to decide where that location is, and that those that second endeavour should go back. So yeah, so I'll go back to the fundraising screen. So like my colleague Councillor Faulkner, I am of two minds to that. However, I will still retain my second after the clarification. I will still retain my second of the recommendations that are on there, and being clear that our conversations will happen with those two, and then if not, they'll be drifted back. If the mover will accept, we'll just remove such as. Sorry, if the seconder will accept. So model in an appropriate location, comma, either the Te Rāwhiti Museum or the East Coast Museum of Technology. Removes any ambiguity, and we can. Anyway. And,
I'll just add to the conversation. For me, I like to see them displayed. Through nothing further than I think they're a wonderful piece of art. But in saying that, we know how divisive it is. We know the decision is very difficult. And we know that every time we get a telephone call, it's contrary to the one we just had 20 minutes before that one. So we are in a difficult position. But one of the arguments that did come through quite often, and it's all about trying to find some way of reconciling the decision, was the fact that why aren't they putting up a waka or something? And I heard that, and I'm sitting here thinking, well, yeah, why don't we? And I would happily lead a fundraising effort to that, because it does go a little way into placating the arguments that we've got in front of us that often stated that our cultural displays single, and they're not displaying to the level that people would like us to. But I think that if we were going to go down that track, we would have to hold back on the establishment of, because iwi aren't ready to see them going up in a prominent place. And I understand the reasons for that. I understand the hurt that's come through colonisation and the difficulty that they've had there. But I also am very concerned that the hurt that's coming onto Pākehā, when we hear the cook was a rapist, a murderer, a killer, a thief, and a paedophile. You know, so I think that we get a bit defensive when we hear those arguments put that way. So we do need to hear all sides of the story, and we do need to find some way of working together to be able to, as Councillor Warsniper said so articulated so well, we are different cultures and we do need to respect each other's cultures. And if there is a way forward, the only one that's been put in front of us at this stage is display all cultures and be proud of them. And I would be absolutely proud to see Waka displayed in an even more prominent position than the Endeavours. I see no problem with that. But at the moment, we're dealing with some Endeavour models that have been produced and are, as Councillor Faulkner said, they're magnificent works of art. And to find a location for them at this stage, it's dividing us all. It's a difficult decision, but we do need to have an ability to get over this and go forward together. And that's where we're at the moment. It's very stressful on us, you know, we've got these views and opinions and that, and we do want to do the right thing. But when you get the split down the middle, it is so hard. So I am of the opinion that I would like to see a display, but iwi aren't ready, and I understand their reasons for not being ready. And if there's any opportunity we can to all get a bit more ready, then I think we should pursue that. And perhaps the display of Waka and the supporting of Waka artwork is a way forward. I know it's not a competition. I know it's not one for them and one for us, but it has been a suggestion that's come through quite strongly in submissions, definitely more strongly than put them in the museum or give them back to the community. I hardly heard that, but I did hear often stated that they would like to see Waka displayed equally prominently, or even from my point of view, more prominently. I've got no problem with that. Councillor Seymour?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your comments. I was just wanting to potentially suggest B, and while I spoke against it earlier, I accept the justification that the Mayor gave to the comment, and that, but I do support what I hear around potentially not the East Coast Museum of Technology, because it's not a frightfully busy place and is less available. So I would suggest that I could be happy, the other resolution fails, to direct the Chief Executive to pursue the permanent installation of one model in an appropriate location at the Tairāwhiti Museum. That can be captured near water, which was actually something that was raised by a number of submitters when they did raise with us. And so in drawing from the summary of submissions, I made the observation near water and said Gisborne waterfront, but it doesn't have to be the waterfront. It can be near the river. But the aspect of being in a marine environment was what was raised by a number of submitters. So I'm just flagging that if this resolution that's being voted on, and I need to be clear that it was for both of those or against, because we've had such a roundabout conversation, I'm not sure where we were voting for those two recommendations or against them.
Just as a bit of direction, I was just looking at recommendations B and C, and I would like to take them separately, because if
Correct.
the CEO cannot find a location, then it does commit us to C, which I'm not in favour of.
But Mr. Chairman,
So I will be taking them.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. I've moved them together, particularly because if you do not have if you do not have C associated to B, then it leaves the Chief Executive with sole responsibility for those models and to find a location, and that is not fair on the Chief Executive. We have made a decision. The decision has been made on the basis that if she is unsuccessful in finding a location in those two locations, then C is activated and they are gifted. And the only other option we have is storage. So I'm not entirely sure what the debate then would be.
Yeah, no, you're quite right. Quite right. Councillor Dowsing's right, though. He's moved and it has been seconded.
Well, we said at the beginning of the conversation that each bullet point would be taken separately. The Mayor said that, and you agreed, I understand. At the very beginning, before the Mayor said that. It was said by someone, maybe the Chair said that.
My indication, and unfortunately I do have to be honest on this, my indication was A and then B and C. So it wasn't separate at that stage, but I do see more sensibility in taking them separate at this stage, but I'll put myself in the corner. Councillor Sheldrake?
Thank you. I just want to reiterate what I said earlier. The East Coast Museum of Technology do not want one at their place. And 8 o'clock this morning, I got the phone call. They met last night to discuss that. And there's strong indication from the
Yeah, the point's been made. Thank you, Councillor Sheldrake. So for clarity, I mean, if people were of the opinion that they were against C, you would possibly have to vote against the recommendation and then have it re-put. Sorry.
Because it is quite hard for the audience to hear your voice.
All right. Thank you.
Just harking back to what was just discussed earlier now, but often when we have points, we do decide we're going to take them separately. So I struggle to see why, I hear what you said, that the one flow on to the other one. But to me, I struggle to see why we can't take B and C separately. Why not? I just, the reasons that were given to me now just don't stack up. So can someone just clarify to me? I know what Shannon said, that if B falls over.
So through the chair, and it's a good indication for how we should tighten up in terms of our recommendations. But if C is not taken, then I have no clarity as to what you want to do following. So we will need to, so those were taken together as a, we'll go here first. If that's not the case, then the community will, group will have them back. So it floats with one another. If you take B alone, and noting it's already been moved and seconded, so you might need to put the motion and see whether that gets lost and then take them separately. Yeah. But the point being, if there was no C, then I have no clarity and no direction as to what to do next.
Yeah, I'll give Councillor Dowsing right a reply at this stage, and just noting that that will be the end of discussion, then the motion will be put.
Thank you. I'm not going to speak to the to a page, Tony. It's okay. I just wanted to speak to the recommendations directly and hopefully put some people at ease. As indicated by Councillor Sheldrake, there may not be a desire for that museum to take it. There's no obligation for them to do so. It's only a discussion between the Chief Executive and the museum to see if they desire it. I don't have information in this report to support whether they do or don't. I didn't see a submission in the submission pack from them. Staff are indicating there was. Can you? No, I can't ask for points of clarity on the submission. In my right of reply. Sorry, no, I was just going to ask whether the submissions from the Museum of Technology. No, there wasn't one. Okay. So that's what I meant. I didn't know there was one from the other museum. So it's only a discussion between the Chief Executive and those museums to see if they accept. We're not putting an obligation on those museums to take them. We're not putting an obligation on the Chief Executive to make them take them. That is simply a discussion, and if it is and if they do not want them, then it goes on to C. So I'm not. So I don't think that there is there shouldn't be a concern based around the fact that the Chief Executive will have those discussions if B should pass.
All right, I'm going to put it in. Yeah, I'll call for a division there. So all those in favour of 1B? Sorry? I was just going to say, that's how it has to go at this stage. It is 1B and C together. No.
Gregory? Aye. Councillor Faulkner? No. Councillor Robinson?
It's a no. It wasn't a no.
Councillor Seymour? Councillor Sheldrake?
No.
Your worship? Councillor Paringa? Yes. Councillor Worsnell? Seven no, 2, 5.
Sorry?
Lost.
So that's lost.
Mr. Chairman, I'm prepared to move a further motion, but I'm
Okay.
not sure whether it's, someone's going to have to rule whether it's too similar to the previous motion. So I will move to be voted separately, directs the chief executive to pursue permanent installation of a model at the Tairāwhiti Museum. Thanks, Bill.
There we go. So who's going to make a call on similarity?
Beg your pardon, you can't hear you when you talk.
Who's going to make a call on similarity of recommendation? For me, it's okay because it
Right, you're
removes
the
C.
chair.
Yeah. No issue. All right.
I think, Mr. Chairman, I will have my right, well, I should
Yep.
be called. We've given it a real hiding. We've heard many submitters. We've heard our councillors today. We need to own the decision we made some time ago and respect the people that helped fundraise to make this possible and those who have shared their opinions, both positive and negative. And I think the council needs to own up and get on with the process and make arrangements for it to be installed at the Gisborne Museum, where its history can be told.
But as CEO's pointed out, this gives no option for further progress if the museums do not want them.
Well, supplementary, Mr. Chairman,
how do we
we
handle
own the
that?
museum and we can invite them to have, and we own the Star of Canada, and the Star of Canada sits outside. I'm not saying this sits outside. There must be a negotiated process that can be arrived at, that if this district thinks, or this council for the moment, as someone has pointed out before, we are the people responsible for making a decision, and as Councillor Porrihinger noted, others change them if they think it's the wrong one. However, for the moment, this has been given the opportunity for the decision to be made and for two mature adults to find a solution.
Councillor Dowsing.
Thank you. I have to speak against that motion. It's very disappointing to hear that a councillor would insist upon the chief executive erecting it at the museum when we do not own the museum. We own the building. We do not. Sorry, we own the land. Sorry, I wasn't. I'm not trying to be that specific. I'm saying that we don't own the operations of the museum, and we cannot impose ourselves on their trust just because we fund them and expect them to jump to our tune. That's that is something that is totally unrealistic of our expectations, and it's a terrible way to treat a partnership. I cannot support that without C being moved as well.
Councillor Wharehinga.
Yeah, to echo that, I'm not a fan of forced decisions. That's how we ended up in this exact situation back in 1969. It was just forced out there, you know. This is why I've been advocating for us to take ownership of the process of this conversation moving forward, and because we will handle this with a duty of care. I have to speak out against us being so rushed to decide where this thing would go. Obviously, the other motion failed, so I'm loath for us to just pick a place and just put it up there, because that's how we ended up in this situation. And if that other motion had, because that other motion has failed, okay, it falls back to us to handle this with again with that duty of care. There's so much risk in us just going, okay, let's just put it on the grounds at the museum, because you know, there's a hononga connection to the awa, to the whenua that's around there. There are multiple users in regards to the museum. It's fraught with so many issues. We can't just randomly pick a place around this table. So I'm in favour of us having a conversation with the museum, but I'm not in favour of us being really forceful about what we're going to do. If so I'm not a fan of of forced decisions. Sorry, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Did you have something you wish? No? Councillor Carter-Brown.
Yeah, we knew that this discussion would lend to lots of layers to unpack in respect to it. And so I want to state emphatically that only one endeavour came to this bay. So we're in a bit of a predicament because 2 models were made. In respect to what we've heard, again, historically, tangata whenua were just never in the brief. They were never engaged. There was no conversation. There just never has been. And now we're in this wonderful new sense of partnerships, of te tiriti, of waitangi, of understanding that we get to do this better than ever been done before. Everywhere around the world, monuments are toppling, and here we are looking to put one up. We are so distinctively unique as a region. We opened an airport while everyone was shutting one down, so to speak. So that's how we roll in Tairāwhiti. But I want to say that emphatically we heard the voice of a collective group that have been silenced and have been quiet for decades. 251 years of colonisation, imperial rule is our reality. And I'm saying today that we could be bold and just simply say the one that Hauiti, who shared a marvellous kōrero to us about this time with Tupaia and James Cook's men, all the streets are called Solander Banks Cook. We were given this reprieve as a council. So there's no reason why we need to put another one up anywhere. Frankly, it's unnecessary. If it's not the museum, because the museum are feeling a little bit pressured, it's about understanding that there is a lot of monuments in this region to Cook. Everywhere you look, there is Cook. The world is full of monuments and makings of our colonial rule. And now iwi have come in and said, well, hey, we'd really always asked to be partners. So we have seen Pou put up artworks, and we don't want it to be tit for tat. I don't want to bring in my 30 cents worth and say on the 10-cent coin, we've got this and the 20 cent, that's not what this is about. It's about us saying shared history has a lot of hurt, pain and suffering. We have rectified it by having an iwi say, let us have this one here. So with the second replica, in my personal view, sitting here now listening to this conversation, is that there is no need of it. We are instating a replica. We are having the story of Cook told. It's not going to be lost. It never will be. So either we gift it back to those who fundraise for it and they share it around at Cook Day, or whatever. But I'm just saying that majority of us in this room are going to struggle with this conversation because of the balance of the shared history. So I think we've got one endeavour and that's all we need. Kia ora.
Your Worship.
Can I ask a quick question? I still lean towards the museum. Like I said earlier, it's not about that, but I see on page 68, we talk about one or both models in Uawa. Have we had the discussion with Uawa that if all fail and we really, really can't find a spot that we can start this healing process, that maybe there might be interest to have both models at Uawa? I'm just saying it's on page 68, but it has not been brought up today. So just putting that out there, it's not one of the recommendations, but I do see that it's on page 68. And they really want those models. That's what Uawa said. They don't want us to pass one on to them. They really want it there. So I just wanted to point that out, that it wasn't raised in debate today, but it is mentioned in the staff notes under approach 3.
Yes, so probably a comment on that through the chair. Their submission is specifically for 1. If they wanted 2, they would have submitted for 2.
So where we're at with the recommendation at the moment is that it fails to give chief executive direction if there's failure to obtain agreement from the museums. So perhaps we could add some wording about some direction after that something like, and where no agreement is obtained, unfortunately, it comes back to us. And I say unfortunately because I know the public's going to be pretty tired of this, but I think it is something that does have to happen. If there's no agreement with the museums, what does the chief do next? And it needs to come onto our shoulders, not hers.
So this is about making a decision on all the information that you've had in front of you. We've spent a long time engaging. You've spent multiple and multiple hui. You've got submissions, you've got options. You're not short of those. So it is really about clarity for us. And it is a political decision to make around this because of the nature of the discussions and the debate in the community. So going away and having a negotiation or discussion and then coming back, it's still not addressing the fundamental issue around making a decision here on where to go with one or two. So I would really like to get that clarity of the suite of options that you've got in front of you, of all the information that's been provided through consultation and what you've learnt through your hui as to what we're going to do.
Councillor Woolston.
I guess the issue that I take with that is that we're quite prepared to keep passing the buck, you know, and I come back to the point that we need to build difference, we need to acknowledge both sides of this argument and do an extent. And giving them is hugely disrespectful. It is a slap in the face. You would never dream of giving our beautiful carvings back. You know, I think we have to, the last thing we need to do is incite retaliative behaviour. And I don't think we need to get into a situation where we're a community are angry with each other. I would far prefer that they were angry with us. Can we do something that annoys everyone? In the event that the CE cannot provide space at the museum, that even goes. Up here, right beside the museum, just on the other side of the road.
Councillor Robertson.
Well, seeing as we're debating a new resolution, I will reiterate my position and just acknowledge Councillor Akuhata Brown for her kōrero before. And I didn't acknowledge all of the submitters when I first spoke, and I didn't particularly acknowledge Tangata Whenua and Mana Whenua in this particular take. The reality is, the C is right. We've had more than enough opportunities to learn about this issue, and staff have invested a significant amount of time in giving us options and information. It is a political decision, and the question today is, what is the political will of the people around this table? You either are going to stand on one side or the other, but you've got to stop flapping in the wind. The reality is, Mana Whenua, our treaty partners, have spoken very clearly that they do not want to see this boat erected in this rohe, unequivocally so. Are we seriously going to countenance an option where we either give it back to the community fundraisers, where that may result in an erection in our community, and Lord knows what sort of bun fight will flow from that, or are we actually going to grow some kahunas and just say, we own these boats, they're the property of the council, one has gone to Uawa, we have heard what our community has said, and we're going to make a bold decision, but frankly for me it's not a bold decision, it's the no-brainer decision, and we are not going to erect a second boat in this rohe. There are more than sufficient monuments to the dominant culture in our country and in this region. That is the Pākehā culture. That is undeniable. So we have heard really clearly from our community saying what those boats symbolise. We've heard the history of how they came to be in 1969. 1 week decorations are supposed to be up for 1 week. These boats do not progress this community. They are a replica of a time where mana whenua tangata whenua views were not taken into account. To even suggest that we just repeat, rinse and repeat, is extraordinary in light of the Tuia 250 commemorations and in light of all the kōrero that we have been exposed to. So I strongly urge my fellow councillors to make the right decision and simply say today, 1 boat goes to Awa, we choose not to erect a second boat in this community and we end this kōrero. And I move that.
I'll second.
The wording. What is the wording of the move, the recommendation?
The recommendation is that the council, the second model is not erected. Wants to be phrased up. That is the intent of what I'm saying. And I've had a seconder of my intent and a thirder of my intent.
Recommendation on the table is Councillor Seymour's for B. Yeah. Okay, so I have clarity around the recommendation put by Councillor Seymour of the wording, and then it will be put. Happy with that, Councillor Seymour? Seconder was? Councillor Burdett. All those in favour? You've got to be quick. It's been put. I heard ayes. Against? Yeah. I will put a division. Yes. Yes.
Councillor Dowsing? No. Councillor Gregory? No. Councillor Faulkner? Yes. Councillor Robinson? No. Councillor Seymour? Yes. Councillor Sheldrake? Yes. Your Worship? Yes. Councillor Cunningham? No. Councillor Worsnop?
No, you can't. No, you can't. Yeah, vote.
Or should I put a motion then that if option, in the event that B fails?
You did take them separately.
We haven't resolved C. We haven't resolved it. There's no resolution with the discussion.
Would you like to move C?
No, I don't want to move C. I want to move a new option. That in the event that the conversation between the CE and the museum does not result in it being placed there, that the statue, the model is not erected. Simple.
Okay, been moved by Councillor Robinson and second.
The wording was that in the event the discussions between the chief executive and the museum do not result in the model being placed there, that the model is not erected.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman, the previous resolution actually said pursue a permanent installation. Didn't say have a discussion. So that,
Sorry.
it says pursue
Can we
a
get some
permanent-
clarity, please, from either James or Heather in terms of process around with this point, the point of order? Thanks.
Sorry, so there is the option to move a motion further in terms of option C or rewording of it. The permanent installation at the museum is not fait accompli.
So in order to protect our CEO, we
Yes.
need to have a plan in place. If that doesn't work, what is our next step? Otherwise, the CEO is going to come back to us and say, well, I've spoken to the museum,
We
either it is
asked for a
installed there, yes,
conversation.
or what's my next step? So as leaders, we need to give Nadine a clear steer that if this does not work, this is what we're going to do next. And that was what was meant with C originally. So we can't shy away from that. Because she might come back and say it's going to the museum.
So I put a motion forward. There was a point of order was raised about the wording that I selected. Can we have back the wording of the motion that just passed, please? So if that is unsuccessful,
Right, that's been voted.
the proposed wording for the third motion,
Yeah.
if resolution B is unsuccessful, then the models are not erected.
All right, easiest way is to just put it, division again.
Is amendment to that permissible?
No, it's
Through the
been-
chair,
no,
through the
I said
chair,
I was
it's
going to put-
been, the motion has been put and seconded,
Yeah.
so it is about voting on that now.
That's right. By division.
I have no idea what you voted on.
Councillor Burdett?
No.
Councillor Cranston?
No,
Councillor Dowsing? Councillor Gregory? Yes. Councillor Faulkner? No. Councillor Robinson? No. Councillor Seymour? No. Councillor Sheldrake?
No.
Your worship? Councillor Wilson? Councillor Faringa? Sorry. Councillor Wilson?
sticking with my vote, which was no.
Can I please move, can I please move option C? Members and
James, can you advise, because that has been a motion that's, so I don't know if you can move
suggest
it
that
again.
Option C is quite similar to the motion that you've just had on. Oh, gifting back, sorry, no, it's fine.
Is it?
Oh, put in lost, yes. It was put in partnership with B previously as a standalone motion with the chair. You could put it to the floor if you get a mover and seconder.
Sorry, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
I do believe though that people voted against specifically C when they voted against B and C collectively together. So
That was,
we need an option.
We need an option.
I hear you, but those people that opposed it technically have already opposed it.
oh, I love this. chair.
We've got such important work ahead of us that
Yeah.
we need to solve this today.
Was there a second, Councillor Faulkner?
I would like to move.
My understanding is it's,
Independent of the other.
yeah. My understanding is it's permissible. It's been moved by Councillor Faulkner.
C as it stands is moved by councillor Faulkner.
James, can you confirm?
I think that you can hold it as a separate motion. It was coupled with B previously and lost.
So can it now be moved separately? Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you've moved that.
And did Councillor Faulkner have a seconder?
She moves C as it's standing.
That's right.
No, it's not a second.
No, no
So
second.
it's not a thing. So we're back to square one again. So we spend more time.
So through the chair, no one has yet asked that C is not being taken. Is that correct? So are you moving just one
We've had a
and
mover,
B?
but we haven't had a seconder for
Okay.
C, and see what I'm saying, and no one seconded it, so. Just so that the process can go through, I haven't seconded anything, so I will second the motion.
C. Okay, put it then.
Division?
Councillor Brown, Cole, Councillor Burnett.
Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
And unreal what's happening here. I don't agree with this at all.
So what's your vote, Councillor Burdett?
Councillor Cranston,
Yes.
Councillor Dowsing.
Yes.
Councillor Gregory. Yes. Councillor Faulkner.
Yes.
Councillor Robinson. Councillor Seymour. Councillor Sheldrake.
No.
Your worship.
Yes.
Councillor Pahihanger.
Vote please, Councillor Fari.
Councillor Horsnott.
Oh, you're kidding.
I'm so glad I'm not changing.
I voted yes. so. Oh. Let's have a 5-minute water after that, eh?
Ready? Testing, 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 testing.
When I met with Dave, he said, "Oh, this agenda might take a while." I says, "Oh, it doesn't look there's that much on it." All right, so we do have a workshop scheduled for 1 o'clock, is it? This is actually more important than the workshop, so we will progress this through as much, and we may need to reschedule the workshop for a bit later if we're struggling, and lunch will be at 12:30. All right. Okay, so page 81, and that's the major projects report from Livable Communities.
Sorry, are you saying are you taking questions from these maybe? Is that what's
Yeah.
happening?
Yeah,
It's
meeting's
really-
carrying on as scheduled until 12:30.
Absolutely, but it's really hard to hear you when you speak down. I'm sorry. You don't shout as loud as the rest
All
of
right.
us.
Here we go. Coming in,
Now,
coming in.
old furniture.
Sorry about that.
We're on the swimming pool. Can I just ask, and I'm not sure whether it was related to the swimming pool, on page 82, and item 3 really, I just would like to understand better what exactly we're doing with the third party that came along. And I understand there's a potential for some modification to the design. And some of us, I mean, only 1 or 2 people, and I'm not criticising that, are on the subcommittee. Do we all understand the timeframes and the process and where additional money is coming from? Because even this says the estimated project budget is 46.055. We were putting 5.65 in, so we've got a gap already. So is it appropriate to have a slight overview of what exactly is going on at the timeframes? Because we understand that we need to commit to the project to keep it moving and to keep the government money. How long can we wait, and what other modifications are likely to be thrown up by the third party that came in later?
Yeah. Thanks, Andrew.
Through the chair, so the message to the third party that you referred to was that any funds required to complete extra works, they would need to find the funds. They were given to the end of November to confirm the funds for that. They've also been invited onto the reference group, and they attended the first meeting of the reference group. So they were told in terms of the widening of the pool, which was one of the elements they were looking for, that that was going to be hugely costly and difficult to implement in terms of the contract that council has with central government for funding. So that's not a feasible option. There is still the potential for a movable floor element within the design, which would not be such a significant cost and not such a significant piece of work. But again, they still need to raise the funds for that work.
Thank you.
Microphone.
What is the end of the, well, is that still the end of November for them to come back? Because obviously they can't be waiting forever.
Yeah.
That's correct, councillor, end of November.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Move councillor Burdett. Second, councillor Sheldrake. Anything further from that report? All those in favour? Against? Carried. Contestable Waste Fund recipients, 85. Moved by councillor Worsnop. Second with councillor Dowsing. Discussion, questions? Councillor Dowsing.
Thank you. Yes, fascinating that we had so many applicants unsuccessful, but I'm not sure whether that's a consequence of the amount of funds or their eligibility. What I would love to understand is that these projects have obviously rated fairly highly on council's radar if they were successful. So it'd be great to understand a little bit more from Recycle 360, and if they could come in and speak to council at some stage. I'd be very interested to hear more from them.
Thanks for that. Nothing further? Welcome, Danielle. Finished. Just no, we're right. All those in favour? Against? Okay. Wainaki Transformation Program update, page 90. Integrated catchments. Councillor Worsnop, question?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, so we've got a student who's being employed over the summer to gather up some of the information that we don't hold, I understand, on how we acquired the land. I just was wondering whether that was out of the existing budget, or was that grant funded? How was that being funded? And, oh, sorry, answer that question, then I'll follow up.
Through the chair, a bit remiss of me. I just need to introduce Amy England, who's our program manager for the Wainaki transformation and has been with us for 3 months. Just to say this is Amy's first committee meeting, so, but she is, but she's been doing a really good job with the rest of the team and getting the program up and running in terms of the restoration work, the relationship with iwi and hapu around it, and also starting the science and mātauranga program as well. So things are moving really well, but I just thought it was important to introduce Amy before she starts answering questions. But I'll hand over to you, Amy.
Thanks, Andrew. Nice to meet everybody. Sorry, was the question specifically about the student working on the land acquisition research? So through the chair, that student is funded through the CE student fund this year. So there, to my knowledge, there were 3 students being funded through CE funds. So it's not coming directly from the program budget. Sorry.
And just my other question was around the planting that took place, which it's noted in here that it may have been risky due to lateness, and we're sort of given the reasons there. And one of the reasons is because it would potentially be too dry in April, which is, I thought was just a bit unusual, because where you're heading into winter, I would have thought it would be kind of expected that it would kind of make more sense. Just with the, will that enable the use of the 75,000 plants that our iwi partners are providing? If we had waited, would that have enabled them to supply plants? I know we didn't, we went earlier, but just, yeah, that's my question.
Through the chair, the 75,000 plants wouldn't have been able to be used. They are being held for planting, but they need repotting. If we had have held the original plants from Cody Park Nursery and used those instead, then we wouldn't have required the plants from Ngāi Te Manuhiri. To answer your question about the lateness of the planting, if you think back to earlier this year and when we were in COVID lockdown, we had very beautiful, long, fine, dry spells. I don't think that planting in late autumn is particularly any better than planting in late spring in terms of the moisture levels in the ground at the time.
The funding's quoted in US dollars. Is that a typo? Is there a reason for that?
Through the chair, that's US dollars. The funding is coming from an organisation in North America, and it roughly equates to about 190,000 New Zealand dollars.
187,223.
Thank you.
On last night's conversion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Harker Brown.
Kia ora, Amy. Listen, just want to thank you for this report. I'm kind of loving the background on page 92, paragraph 2 notes the history, and as you were, whether you were in here just before council, you know, iterations of change and movements that happened from when first reporting in respect to programs. So it's wonderful to see the breakdown of how long and for us to be involved with this project. I'm excited to see the future of it, and of course grateful for the collaboration and the partnerships. It can happen. It takes time and energy from staff and of course council's willingness to pursue those partnerships. So thank you for that. And will we just continue to receive reports keeping us up to date, and will this program be used to perhaps promote other spaces and places in region, because it's been seemingly going so well. It seems to have covered off a number of things. So can it be used to, promote around region other parts of us that want to do planting and regenerative work, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I guess I'm sure it will be, but just really a thank you from me and from the Wainaki kind of framework of this mahi. I'm very excited to see it happening and love being up there to plant a tree. Kia ora.
Mayor Stoltz.
Kia ora, Amy, can I just ask out of interest a question? I'm on page 95 that shows all those little spots where the goats were killed. What happens to 1,200 goat carcasses? How is that, how do you deal with that? Is it fertilizer?
Through the chair, yes, the goat carcasses are left in place. The goat carcasses are left in place.
Councillor Wharehing and then Councillor Seymour.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I do also want to echo the sentiments in regards to the report and thank you, brother. Yeah, I do want to echo the previous comments by Councillor Kuatsa Brown about this report and the work that's been going on here and the history of this work in Waimaki. I do want to also specifically mention Marae Taha, Tā Manuhiri and Rangi Waho in regards to
at page 93, and it talks about the planting activity, and there are a whole lot of reasons, stroke excuses, why the planting didn't happen then. So I want to know if it's going to be better planned for next year, because I think we did start planting quite quickly after the harvest. So I appreciate there wasn't a lot of time in the 2020 planting season, so we'll imagine they'll be better organised for 2021. Is that going to happen?
Through the chair, yes, good question. That's part of what we're working on now is procurement planning for planting next winter and making sure that that is done well in advance so that we're ready to get plants in the ground come June, July, rather than September, October.
Thanks. And I had my question on item 17, which is probably more directed to council officers. We see here, item 17 on page 94, that the biosecurity team have been carrying out weekly night shoots with within the planting areas to control numbers of hares and rabbits. And well, it doesn't say possums in the script, but it says it at the end, 58 possums. I hope that's not to the exclusion of other areas where landowners are paying quite substantial rates for pest control. And I can tell you, it's really difficult to get a night shoot now, yet we are creating, this is sorry, not directed to you, it's a management decision. Night shoots are happening here, and we understood when we set this project up that it was having quite a significant amount of pest control, so it got off the ground. But as a farmer, which you might not know, I do know and understand possums travel for miles, so we'll be forever needing to keep the possums out of here. The goats will too, and I see you're working on a 1 kilometre boundary around there, but you'll be forever, or for the next 10 years, needing to have goat cull. Landowners across the district pay on the back of their rate demand a substantial amount for pest control. So can management tell us that night shoots are still available to landowners where possums are a pest in other parts of our region?
Through the chair, not my activity, but as Councillor Seymour knows, the rating changed for pest control several years ago in terms of the regional pest management plan. The biosecurity team has been working in Wainaki for many years doing pest control, and their role is changing to more of an advocacy and a support role as opposed to doing all the work on the ground because of the change in the rating approach. So I think we will see things changing in terms of the work that council does on the ground on private properties, doing the physical work on the ground, moving towards more of an educational and enablement process over time.
Thank you, Mr. White. So we should make sure we flag that in our next LTP, because there's no educational process available right now. Is there, Councillor Birdian?
All right, nothing further on that? Yeah, Councillor Worsnop.
Can I just add to that little bit of conversation just around the possum control is going to be really critical to regeneration. We know that. Having had a property in Hawke's Bay, they do almost no shooting. They do all stations and trees, and the man hours are hugely reduced, and the economy of doing that is vastly better. Are we investigating these sorts of ways of keeping possums and in particular under control, rather than staff time is pretty expensive and precious, right?
Through the chair, just to clarify, with those weekly night shoots, they were set up initially for the first few weeks following planting, so that we could get an idea of whether we had a problem, particularly with rabbits and hares, which we knew would affect the new plants going in the ground. So it was a way for us to get an idea of what was happening up there. Those night shoots are not planned to continue on an ongoing basis. That was really to give us an idea, and numbers are fairly low. The rabbits and hares up there. Possums were shot if they were seen in the area, but the night shoots were not targeted directly at possums either. In terms of ongoing possum control, that's something that we will be looking at in future planning for the program. At the moment, we identified that goats were the highest priority. As you can see, the numbers of goats were very high density, and they were the immediate threat to the plants that were going in the ground. So to get on top of that, goat control was the top priority. Now that we have some effective goat control in place, that will allow us some space to look into other pest control options.
Control within it, because I understood there was some kind of an arrangement between iwi or some personal recreational shooting, but is someone monitoring the deer in that area at the same time as they're up there, because they can cause a huge amount of damage as well?
Through the chair, the deer numbers are being monitored by the goat colours. They are not targeting deer at the moment, but they are providing us with GPS locations and numbers of deer that are being encountered up there. Currently, numbers are very low, although we do expect them to increase as goats are eradicated or kept to low densities up there. In terms of deer control and hunting, it's my understanding that the Waterworks team have a hunting ballot, and half of that ballot, I believe, is available for iwi hunters, and then the other half available to the general public, and that operates over a certain time of year.
Thank you.
All right, it's just a noting report, recommendation. Moved by Councillor Dowson, second by Councillor Burdett. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Page 100 is the update on the winter air quality monitoring. Moved by Councillor Wharehinga. Second by Councillor moved by Councillor Dowson, second by Councillor Wharehinga. Questions? No? All good? All right, all those in favour? Against? Carried. And page 107, Scientific Groundwater Bore Drilling Project. Moved by Councillor Dowsing, seconded by Councillor Worsnop. Question by Councillor Worsnop.
So my question, point 16 on page 110, was just with regards to the scientific information presented to Te Aitanga Hauiti. Will that information, once held by the council, be publicly accessible?
Kia ora. Through the chair, apologies, I missed the start of your question. Will we make the information public? Yep. The data we collect, yes, it will be on the public record, held on the GDC website and LAWA, etc.
Councillor Akara-Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In the summary, there's a third paragraph. There is a significant community interest in the drilling, respect to abstraction of commercial uses. And I just wanted, with that concern, because people have asked me actually in the public domain about water, commercial use, etc. And I said, not in this region. So I just want to know, do we need to strengthen a stance to that? Because it states in it that future interest in future abstraction. So I'm just, do we need to do something significant to look into that? Because it is a concern and it will bring forward a lot of people, I'm sure, to make submissions. So can we do something in the now, or do we just wait for that to play out if it does end up going commercial?
Yes, that's something we are concerned about and are aware of, and it's something we're working internally on over the next few weeks. It is something we're very mindful of, hence why I wanted to bring it to your attention through this report, because while our groundwater bores are purely for scientific purpose, we are aware that once we've put that in, it may show some information on water availability, which will bring in interest from commercial entities. So yes, it is something we're aware of and we're working through.
Thank you. I guess supplementary, just that, to allay concerns if people think something that isn't actually going to be out there in respect to the science. And so, yeah, just sometimes in our region, people put cart before horse as far as thinking. So kia ora.
Your wish.
I just want to compliment the staff. I know Councillor Seymour were at some of those meetings, but thank you for live streaming some of that. And what I wanted to say, I watched the last one. It was about an hour or 2 hours that you were there with the community, and you could pick up a lot of frustration. But I do want to commend you for going out, listening to the community, and I see you've got 2 more meetings coming up. And hopefully by that time, the community would have asked the questions and received the answers that they are after, because it was clear that there were community frustration when council turned up for that last 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thanks for that.
Can I just, through the chair, can I just thank you for that and introduce you all to Josh, who's project leading this project. So I'd like to, publicly thank him for his efforts in that. And yes, it's great to be able to engage with the community, and I know they've taken the cadets, for example, from the local out to do some of the science, and we encourage anyone who wants to come along throughout this process and engage with us.
Councillor Burdett. Councillor Burdett.
Project I2Y, East Coast Aquifer Exploratory Project. You've made a start in Uawa. Are you going further north, given we're going through the long-term plan funding and projects? See, David's got a bit of a grin on his face.
To the chair.
Does it come supplementary to that, Mr. Chairman? Does it come at the request of the community?
Through the chair, no, we will strategically plan to head up the coast. Thank you, David. Sorry. Cool. Through the chair, yes, we will focus on the Ora catchment with this project. However, we'll take the lessons we learned from that, and we have to strategically, under the National Policy Statement for Freshwater Management, understand the whole region. So we will work together with the community and other aspects of council to identify the next groundwater system.
All right, nothing further on that paper. Recommendation is just receipt of the report. We had a move and second, didn't we? No, we didn't catch you that way. Councillor Akara-Brown and Councillor Dowsing. Don't fight over it, guys. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well spotted. Yeah. Moved by Councillor Dowsing, second by Councillor Worsnop. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Well, folks, that's it. Oh. Yeah, thanks.
I just really want to commend you today on chairing today's meeting. It's as our topics that are highly, I guess, topical in our community and also around this table. We bring all of that, all of those thoughts and all of those feelings to this table. So I do just want to commend you on your chairing of today's meeting. I also wanted to acknowledge my colleagues around the table too. Actually, it was Councillor Robinson that said something to me before. He said, "That's democracy in action." You know, we all had our say. We weren't getting personal and insulting and all of that kind of stuff. We stuck to the conversations that we heard in the community, and we tried to. And I feel like we did that around the table. So even though we were distinctly split right down the middle in regards to that issue, I do think that we were on the same waka in regards to how we conducted ourselves at this hui, and that's distinctly related to how you were chairing that discussion there, Mr. Chair. So I just wanted to acknowledge you for that prior to closing this meeting.
Well, thanks very much for that, because sitting in this chair, you don't get the luxury of understanding how it's going so much. And I believe we do have lunch and we've got a workshop scheduled for 1 o'clock, and we can probably keep to that time at this stage. Any idea how long the workshop might be? Who might know? Meeting closed.